Hey everyone, and an absolutely huge welcome to our 7th grade learners. Today, we're keeping the momentum going on our information technology journey. Now, if you think back to Unit 1, we talked a ton about the basics of computers and what it means to practice good digital citizenship. Well, today, we are jumping right into Unit 4 for a really fun explainer on web design basics. We're going to treat this whole thing like a builder's journey. We are going to take you from a brand new, rough concept all the way to a published, real-world digital creation.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our 5-step roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the building blocks. Then we'll get into blueprinting. After that, we are opening doors, moving right into quality control, and wrapping it all up with a final inspection.
All right, starting with step 1, building blocks, specifically HTML and CSS. Before we can build our digital house, we have to figure out what raw materials we actually need, right?
Think about it like this. If you were going to build a physical house, you'd need woods, some nails, maybe some concrete to pour a foundation. Well, for a digital house, your very first raw material is HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language. You can really just think of HTML as the framing or the skeleton of your digital house. It is the absolute standard coding language used to structure a web page and hold all its content together. Literally, without it, the house falls down. It creates that essential, rock-solid structure holding your text, your images, and your links right where they need to be.
But, a bare skeleton of a house isn't exactly cozy or nice to look at, is it? That is where our second material steps in. Enter CSS, or cascading style sheets. If HTML is the wooden frame, CSS is your fresh coat of paint, the cool interior decor, the landscaping out front. It's the coding language used to style and design the visual layout of your page. CSS brings in the vibrant colors, changes up the fonts, and takes that raw HTML structure and makes it actually look amazing for whoever is visiting your site.
And this brilliantly illustrates the difference between the two. On one hand, HTML provides your structure, your text, your links, your skeleton. On the other hand, CSS brings the style, the colors, the fonts, the paint. They have totally distinct jobs, but they absolutely must work together as a team if you want to create a functional and beautiful web page.
Moving right along to step 2, blueprinting. Because honestly, before we write a single line of code, we really need a solid plan.
Just like a master architect wouldn't just start pouring concrete without looking at a blueprint, we shouldn't start coding without a map. Here is exactly how a standard, simple web-made structure is mapped out from top to bottom. At the very top, you've got the header, and its main purpose is to hold your big title or your logo. Right below that, or sometimes tucked off to the side, is the navigation section, which holds all the links to the other pages on your site. Then, taking up the most room, the real meat of the page is the body content. That's where your main text and all your media go. Finally, down at the bottom, we cap the whole thing off with a footer, which usually holds stuff like copyright information or contact details. Taking a minute to map this out in your head makes the actual coding part so much easier.
So how do you actually put this into practice? Let's walk through a worked planning example. When you sit down to build your own site, just follow these 3 steps. Step 1, sketch the layout. Literally grab a piece of scrap paper and roughly draw where your header, body, and footer are going to go. It doesn't have to be pretty. Step 2, draft your content. Write out the actual text you want to say before you even stress about the code. And then finally, step 3, write the HTML. Now you can take those words you drafted and just wrap them in the structural code we talked about earlier.
Okay, phase 3, opening doors. We have our structure, but it begs a really critical question. How do we make sure everyone can actually use it?
Our house is built, but we have to make sure the front door is wide open for absolutely everyone to get inside. This is where accessibility choices are a total game changer. The design choices you make directly impact the user experience for everyone visiting your site. Here are 4 concrete things you should absolutely be doing. First, use alt text for your images. That's hidden text that describes a picture for people who rely on screen readers. Second, use high contrast colors. Think dark text on a nice light background, so it's super easy to read without squinting. Third, use crystal clear link names. Instead of a vague link that just says click here, tell them exactly where they are going, like read our history. Finally, use logical headings. It organizes your text and makes your whole page incredibly easy to scan.
So the crucial point is really perfectly captured right here. Responsible digital citizens design inclusive spaces so everyone can navigate the web effectively. If you think back to Unit 1, we talked so much about digital citizenship and using technology responsibly. Well, web accessibility is just putting that digital citizenship into real-world action. By building accessible websites, you're basically proving that you are a responsible, empathetic creator who cares about your audience.
All right, that brings us to step 4, quality control. Because, as you'll see, building a web page is definitely an ongoing, cyclical process.
Let's move to and see how this builds into an iterative testing cycle. You've sketched it, you've coded it, you made sure it's accessible, but listen, it is almost never perfect on the very first try. Iterative just means doing it over and over again to gradually improve it. First, you test the site yourself, click around, see how it looks. Second, you're inevitably going to find bugs. Maybe you spot a broken link or the text formatting looks totally weird. Third, you go back and fix the code. Once you have cycled through testing and fixing a few times, then you finally hit step 4, publishing those basics for the whole world to see.
And here we are at step 5, final inspection. Let's wrap up our builder's journey with a quick check on our mastery. Let's make sure we don't have any wobbly floorboards in our foundational knowledge today. Here is a super common misconception check I want you to think about. Do you need a perfect, 100% complete site before you can even start testing it? Take just a second and think about what we just discussed with that iterative cycle.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the answer is a massive, resounding no. Testing is completely iterative. You absolutely do not wait until the very end. You test, you fix, and you improve constantly throughout the entire building process. Honestly, even professional web developers constantly test and fix as they go. Waiting until the end just means you're going to have a massive mountain of bugs to fix all at once, which is super stressful. So the golden rule: build a little, test a little, fix a little. To conclude our explainer today, I want to leave you with a final thought. An exit question, kind of a challenge for you as you step out of this lesson and onto the real internet. The next time you look at a website you use every single day, I want you to look just a little bit closer. Can you easily identify its header, its body, and its footer? And even more importantly, can you spot at least one accessibility feature they use to make that site inclusive? Start looking at the web not just as a casual user, but as a real builder. Thanks so much for learning with me today. You guys are going to make some amazing stuff. I'll see you in the next one.